crash on the track up at State. And I'm bringing to you live my boys Alec and Nate, Tequila Ty, Jay, Nelly, and Zillin in the building. So kick it back, pour the drink. We chillin' because I'm boozing and betting and balling like I'm 2-6 in the blue kicks. Watch me move quick. Yeah, this the blueprint. So who's getting involved? Welcome into the show. This is Booze, Bets, and Ball, baby.
And welcome back to Booze, Bets, and Ball. We are back after the long Labor Day weekend, and we have a lot to go over. As Penn State beat Purdue on Thursday in a game that had, I don't know what a high heart rate is. I think like anything over like 120 is probably pretty high. I don't know. I took a class on it. I can't remember anything about it, but I'm gonna say it was closer to 200. So I'm gonna leave it there. But that was a wild one. I don't know what you thought. I mean, I was all over the place. Some of it's kind of a blackout for multiple reasons, I guess, but.
Well, I only had one drink the whole game, so I had work the next morning and stuff, so didn't get too drunk. But I felt it was probably the wildest night of my life. Which is it went from some comfort, like maybe we're gonna lose, maybe it's okay. Then it was 21-10 at half, and it's like holy crap, they're gonna roll. And then something happened, and it was 31-28, and they threw a pick six, or Sean Clifford threw just a very, very poor pass, pick six. And then it's like there's no chance they're going to win. And then you have the best single drive by a Penn State team since Iowa City in 2017. So, yeah, absolutely emotional roller coaster.
Yeah, it was. And a lot of the conversation since this game has been on Clifford, who threw for 281 yards, 4 touchdowns, had a rushing touchdown, and everyone just seems to be getting hung up on the pick six and the fact that Aller did play in the game because Clifford missed a drive for what they're calling cramps.
Yeah.
It's just like, and he was named the co-offensive player of the week in the Big Ten, and it just still seems like people cannot give him the benefit of the doubt there for all the good he did, because yes, it was a very bad throw on the pick six, but to come back then and win the game on a very impressive drive, I just feel like people are kind of harking on the bad instead of the good here, when even though his receivers dropped maybe 3 or 4 passes, it was still pretty good. It was still a pretty good outing from him, I thought.
I agree. I don't have his stats versus Drew Allar's stats. I just have the overall. Penn State had 7.5 yards per attempt. Purdue had 6.2 yards per attempt. Purdue threw the ball a ton, but only 51% completions. After watching the game, if you just asked me who threw for more yards per pass, I would say that Purdue, no doubt, because it seemed like they had guys, catching slants over the middle for 10 yards a clip, and Penn State could do nothing to stop them. But Penn State had a lot of big plays too. It seems like the Keandre Lambert-Smith touchdown was pretty great. The one to Brenton Strange right before the end of the half was amazing. Like great singular efforts by both of those receivers. So I think Penn State had a lot more explosive plays. Didn't go back and look at that just yet, but we will in the future. But yeah, just a couple of mistakes, right? It was not nearly as bad as I think in the moment it seemed and people made it out to be. And the longer that time goes since the actual game, I think the more appreciation that I've seen online for Clifford doing a pretty damn good job, especially in the end.
Yeah. And I mean, once again, the run game wasn't anything over the top. They had 3 guys, I think it was like 9, 9, and 8 in terms of carries with Singleton, Lee, and Allen. And none of them went over 31 yards, I think. I think Allen led the way with 31 or something like that. It still wasn't great. I don't know what they're going to do moving forward if they can keep going where the carries are equally split up 33%. I don't know if that's a recipe for success moving on throughout the year. And it's just kind of like, early in that game, I'm seeing some holes that Lee kind of didn't have a burst to go through. And I'm like, wow, if that was Singleton or Allen, that might have been 10, 15 yards. And it's like, I would have liked to see them. But then on that last drive, it's like Lee looked like a veteran, like what he is. And it's like, he's the guy one in on that drive then in that situation, but he also can't be ice cold for 3 quarters and then come in and do that. And I think that's kind of what the staff's feeling is too. They don't know what to do, because in a situation, if another situation like that was to occur where they need to rely on Lee, they can't have him where he didn't play all game and then just not play these 2 kids that they relied on to get them to the 4th quarter.
Yep, I absolutely hate the running back rotation as it stands right now. And again, it's only 1 game, but you got 8 carries for Katron Allen, 9 for Lee, 9 for Singleton, only 5 for Clifford too, which we could talk about a little bit. That's actually I think that stalled a lot of drives, his lack of willingness to run, and same thing with Drew Lar. But yeah, like the running backs, just 3.9, 3.3, 2.4 yards per carry. We did have a 12-yarder from Kevon Lee, which, anything over 10 yards and compared to last year's team is explosive, but I don't know. Nobody can get in a rhythm. They're switching literally every series. It's just like you said, and this is a problem that they had a couple of years back too. I think, I don't think it was like Noah Cain's freshman year, right? When
it was 2019.
Yeah. And who else was in the mix at that time? Dev Ford was a freshman with Cain.
Well, Ricky Slade, actually, he started the year as the starter, and that lasted like 1 game.
Yep.
So it is. Yeah, you got a little wind tunnel going.
No, sorry, a video autoplayed on ESPN.
I got you.
But yeah. So you had 4 running backs start the year that year, and they figured it out towards the end of the year, right? It became Noah Cain and Journey Brown. Journey Brown became a very, very successful back, and Noah Cain that year, after he came back from he got injured against Michigan State. But I want to say they'll figure this one out too, hopefully.
Yeah, I think they will. We'll see how things go, especially this week, because I think there's going to be more opportunities for the young guys against Ohio. We'll get into that later in the week. We're going to double dip now on game weeks, we think, for most of the time. So be a little easier to separate things, and it keeps the episodes from being like an hour 20 long. So that's kind of where we're going with that. But I think we'll see what happens there. And I mean, they scored 35 points and they didn't get over 100 rushing yards. And Parker Washington, who's probably their best receiver, went for 2 for 30. And they still managed to score 35. So, I mean, I'm pleased kind of with how that went, I think, because they also dropped a couple passes. I think it was a good start. It was a hard start for the offense. An away game in conference game, an away game to start the year, kind of breaking in Tinsley, breaking in the new running back, some changes on the offensive line. Didn't have Theo Johnson, which Franklin later stated was kind of a problem because they wanted to run a lot of 12 and 13 personnel, and they had to scrap some of it once he was a no-go. So, I mean, I thought it was a pretty good start, all things considering.
I agree. Just the output. I mean, if you went into the game saying that they're going to score 35, you would have given them a very high chance of winning. Because I said 31-17. I think you were right around there as well. So I think that number, the offensive number, is very good. Now, it was really, they scored 21 points in the second quarter and 14 points in the fourth quarter. You'd like to see a little more consistency.
Yeah.
Some stalled drives because of drops, some stalled drives because of the quarterbacks not running when they should. And in the past couple of years, we've been kind of harping on maybe running too much and getting injured. But now, like, when it's open, they have to be able to just take off. And Clifford did it once or twice with good success. But yeah, going forward, I mean, I think you need to find a way to be a little more consistent. Last year they had 5-6 games rushing for over 100 yards. Ball State 240, Indiana 209, Iowa 107, Michigan 109, Rutgers 149, and Arkansas 125. But then you get a lot of 30s and 40s and 60s mixed in there too. So you'd like to see this week them come out as they did last year against Ball State and kind of really pound the ball and get the offense, get the running game going, so that when they go to Auburn the following week, they have something to build on there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that'd be nice for Auburn because Auburn has a good defensive line. That's gonna be a solid test. But on the other side of the ball, the pass rush didn't get there for about 3 quarters, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that Purdue was just everything was out of the hand in less than 3 seconds. It felt like. Um, then in the fourth quarter, it got there. Chop Robinson especially
Yeah.
showed off a lot of speed and athleticism on that final drive.
Yep.
I liked what I saw from the defense. I think they got a little torn up in the third quarter, and then they changed some things around and played exceptionally well in the fourth when it mattered. What PPF or yes tweeted out they they had the most pass breakups,
Ever, yeah, like
ever, yeah. So
Yeah, so that I don't know. In the moment, it felt bad, but I think the Penn State defensive teams in the moment often feel bad, right? When it was Brent Pry and it was all this bend don't break kind of defense, it just felt like they were getting torn up the whole game, and then the team would only score 12 points or 14 points. Here they scored 31. The offense has scored 24, so that's not as good as it has been in years past, but it just felt like Purdue moved the ball really well. But I think, like you're saying, a lot of short drops. Purdue must have done something differently this game than last year, because last year they were one of the worst teams in the Big Ten at giving up sacks and tackles for loss, and they held Penn State to like 4 total sacks and tackles for loss, which is very low, right? So they may be schemed specifically to avoid those kind of things and wanted to get the ball out quick. So that's reflected, and we'll see how they do for the rest of the year. Both Purdue's offense and Penn State's defense at avoiding havoc and generating it. So I don't know, not a lot to read into it yet. They won the game. Defense looked good at times, maybe not so great at other times.
Yeah, it was a decent start, I'd say. I'm not going to harp on anything really. It was a difficult game for the defense too with the new coordinator. And I also don't think they knew totally what to expect from Purdue, because Purdue slid in an entirely new starting receiver group for this year, and maybe they were a little caught off guard by what Charlie Jones did. I think we all were too.
I think Charlie Jones was caught off guard by what Charlie Jones did.
That's probably true too. So I mean, I really don't have that many problems with that side of the ball. I think we got a little robbed of what Abdul Carter could have done because of the BS ejection. I think, he's a guy who might have been a tackle for loss machine in that game. He's just so athletic. So I think, not being able to see that probably played a little bit of a difference in that game. We'll see. They
well, and then Curtis Jacobs went out a little bit too there, right?
Yeah.
And would have liked to have Abdul Carter there. That call is 100% on the ref, though. If you watch that in real time, like the ball is laying on the ground for a few seconds, and the ref doesn't blow the damn whistle, and the guy does what he's taught to do. So that was just bull crap.
Yeah, that's just not. And to wrap up, we didn't kick any field goals, but I was pretty happy with the way special teams went. Obviously, replacing do-it-all Jordan Stout. They had 2 guys rotating the kickoffs, but Purdue did pretty much nothing on kickoffs. And then Barney Amore was pretty good on punts. I think he averaged about 46 a punt.
Yeah.
A couple pin deep. I mean, I thought that was a pretty good debut from him too. So it was one game, but I'm not really worried about punter now going forward again.
No, 100%. And I'd have to go back and look specifically, but I think that there was one where he dropped it at the 4. It spun to the 1,
dropped.
and then they put it in the end zone. But I think that's a drive that Purdue scored on. So the difference of them getting that ball at the 20 versus the 1 is a huge that's a huge impact of
for sure
that drive, and they have to protect when the dude's going to punt like that. I mean, that's amazing. And then rotating the kickoffs, it seems like they have the option to either kick it to the goal line or right near the goal line and let them try to return it, or punt it or kick it through the end zone. And having that kind of diversity in what you want to let the kickoff return team do on the opponent is actually pretty useful, I think.
I thought,
and you want to see Jake Pinniger kick a couple of field goals at least 30.
This
40
week.
yards.
This week I'd like to see. I know, I don't want to say I want him to kick field goals because you want touchdowns, but if he has to kick a 40 to a 45-yarder, I'd like to see a couple of them, as long as still comfortably win the game. But I think we need to see a few.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was a good start, I'd say, for Penn State. 1-0, you can't complain. Still not ranked though. I think they came in at
27.
27th. Yeah, so that it is what it is for now. Got to win a couple more. There were a lot outside of Penn State, which was a great game. There were a lot of good games. There was a good game going on right as Penn State's game was going on with the backyard brawl with West Virginia and Pitt. That game, we almost had two games end with the game-winning score being a pick six within like 20 minutes
Yeah.
of each other. Thankfully, that was not the case, but Pitt kind of, I don't know, whether that go off that guy's helmet or just right off the top of his fingertips there. He was wide open. It was just overthrown a little bit. And the defender's right there and takes it back. I mean, that was I didn't watch a lot of that game in the second half once Penn State came
Yeah.
on, but that was another wild game.
That was, and then it just seems like a lot of the ranked teams, a lot of the teams that were favored,
Yeah.
just had a little bit of struggle going into it, at least to start their games off. I mean, you got Pitt, they squeaked by with a win. They were certainly favored. You look at Ohio State, 21-10, losing at halftime to Notre Dame, end up scoring 14 points in the second half. There's a few other games like that too, where just certainly NC State, right, just barely getting by East Carolina.
Right.
So like, I don't know, and that's another thing that kind of bolsters how I felt about the Penn State game in hindsight too, is that you can't expect every week, especially first week of the year, that they're going to come out and do everything that you want them to do throughout the season. Right now, that happens with some teams, and we can talk about Georgia or Alabama or any other myriad of teams who played really inferior opponents. But Purdue was good, and I think getting a win there, like you said, away to open the Big Ten is a positive takeaway, no matter how it happens.
Yeah, I mean they could have been LSU missing the extra point to tie the game, but yeah, I mean Georgia looked really good. I mean, I actually thought they would take. I think everybody thought they'd take a few steps back, just with how many guys got drafted from that team, like an insane amount. And Stetson Bennett looks a lot better than he did last. He looks more like last year. I felt they had him in a game manager role, but this year he looked like he was out there making his own. He had that one touchdown where he avoided like four guys in the backfield and just found a wide open receiver for a touchdown. Like he looks even better, which I think adds an element to that Georgia team that they're not just going to rely on running the ball and playing great defense. They could also really sling it around now. So I think that's an added element for them.
368 passing yards on basically 80% completions. I mean, just nuts, right? That's crazy. And the Georgia defense, incredible. I mean, I don't know what we really expected from Bo Nix, right? But 173 yards, 2 interceptions. I did pick Oregon to win the Pac-10, so that took a hit, but everybody besides USC basically took a hit this week, so that's all right.
Yeah, my Pac winner went down too with Utah losing in Florida. I don't know what they were really looking at on that. I think it was just second and goal when he threw the interception. I think even I don't think they had any timeouts, but I wonder if you even just think about running the ball there, be a little safer, try to get it in, spike it if you have to, take the field goal for the tie. That was interesting what they did in the goal line. Cam Rising is a veteran quarterback. I'm a little surprised by the throw there, but that was a tough loss for them. Florida goes from unranked to 12. I think people are realizing Anthony Richardson is a pretty good quarterback, so he's going to get some Heisman hype. My Heisman pick, Braylon Allen, pretty good game, broke the Wisconsin record for longest run ever at 96 yards. They played a pretty bad team, but they looked pretty good too. So.
Yeah, there's the SEC kind of across the board is stacked. I think they have something like at least in SP plus 10 teams in the top 25 or something like that, right? Which is amazing. Big Ten, Penn State's going to be in the mix, right? We'll see if the Ohio State offense gets going. Michigan looked good. Michigan State looked okay. Like you said, Wisconsin, they played a bad team, but they took care of business. So I don't know, man. And we're starting the season. There's already upsets. We like to see some upsets. We like to see a few more upsets so that Penn State can break the top 25. But it's exciting. Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, even I was surprised Rutgers went up to Boston College and won because I think Phil Jerkovic's a pretty good quarterback. So I was surprised about that. They used Gavin Wimsatt in like a Wildcat quarterback. I noticed he ran the ball a lot, so I don't know if that's their plan with him for this year. But that was a big win for them, I thought, going up to Boston College, who is like I don't know, a 7-8 win team. Like
Yeah,
that doesn't sound impressive to most people, but Rutgers going on the road to beat an 8-win team is actually a pretty big deal for them.
I mean, Boston College is tough every year, right? Their defense tends to be pretty tough. They run the ball very well, and then they always have a good pro-style quarterback, right? That can manage games. So, yeah, good for them. Let's see. They play Wagner this week, then Temple before Iowa. So, okay, so then it was a stretch of Iowa, Ohio State, Nebraska, Indiana. So, if they're after they get past Indiana, if they're like 4-2 or something, that's 3-3. That's not too bad. Then they get the meat of their schedule with the two Michigans, Penn State and Minnesota. So Rutgers in a bowl, maybe.
Yeah,
I could see it. Bringing them back fast, if so.
I could see it. Yeah, you brought up Iowa. The hardest possible way to get to 7 points. Iowa did it. 2 safeties and a field goal, and they win 7-3. And what was maybe the weirdest college football game I've ever watched. I never saw anything like that. I'm too young to remember the dreadful 6-4 game everyone talks about with Iowa. But I mean, that was something to watch. The way I've never seen a defense really outscoring offense like that, and to get the win.
They're terrible. Their offense is so bad, and 166 total yards. And South Dakota State's a really good FCS team, right? They're top 5 or so FCS team, but if you're going to contend to win the Big Ten West, you need to beat them by more than 4 points, and all 4 of those points coming off safeties. Yeah. Spencer Petras, 11-25 for 109, negative 25 rushing yards. So he's like a 1980s Cleveland Browns quarterback or something like that. He's immobile and, has nobody to throw to. Tell you what, Charlie Jones, there's one team that's missing Charlie Jones right now. It's the Iowa Hawkeyes. I don't know. I'm sure they're going to be fine, and I'm sure it was a fluke, and their defense is fantastic, and it's going to keep them in every game. But I want them to lose this week to Iowa State. I want them to get killed by Iowa State this week, and I don't care what it says about the Big Ten or anything, but you can't win a game like that and still be going for a Power 5 division championship.
Yeah, I mean, they got away with it last year, and they don't have Tyler Goodson, who was like their do-it-all running back from last year. So I was expecting a step back again from their offense, but not this bad. I mean, they're going to win some games just because of that defense, and they get so like their best player on their team might be their punter, which is crazy to think. But yeah, I don't know with Iowa. I still like Wisconsin and Minnesota a lot more to win that division.
I agree. Minnesota, very, very strong start to them, 38-0. Mo Ibrahim back strong.
Yeah, he looked good.
Yeah, and they went out the first game last year. So that whiteout, already after 1 week, that is looking a little more intimidating. But yeah, we'll see. Long way to go before we get there.
Yeah, we will have to see. Last thing. So UCLA and USC are going to join the Big Ten for 2024, and their crowds over the weekend caught a lot of criticism. They were pretty bad. Now the heat index in Southern California was like 102, 103 or something like that. But I mean, USC is supposed to be, a pretty good team this year with a new coach coming in. They have the Blitnikoff winner playing receiver. They have the former number 1 quarterback in the country playing quarterback, and the crowd was a little disappointing. And I just, going out there really wouldn't, I think, scare most Big Ten teams. They might look at it as like a home team, but it's just a little warmer.
Yeah, they played Rice. I live in Houston. The fan base of Rice makes up the 10,000 people that graduated from Rice in the last 10 years, and so they had 60,000 attendance, at least what it says, against the 77.5 capacity. I don't know. There's so many. You always hear this, right? There's so many things to do in Southern California. It's Labor Day weekend. You go to the desert, you go to the beach, you go to Vegas, whatever. Like, I don't know. You want to see USC kill Rice, and the UCLA. I saw something like 6,000 or something at that stadium. That I mean, they're not very good right now to begin with.
Yeah.
And, you couple that with, again, Labor Day weekend in Southern California. Let's go do something else.
Yeah, I mean,
We'll see how it goes through the year.
Yeah, we will see how that continues to grow. I think Big Ten fans are actually looking at that. I know I was, and it was kind of all over the place on Twitter, but it was a fun start to the year. I mean, a couple quarterback controversies still need to be worked out. We got JJ
You want to name
McCarthy.
one?
Yeah, JJ McCarthy starting this week with Cade McNamara starting last week, and what was a weird game. We have DJU and Klubnik at Clemson. And the portion of the Penn State fan base that a drive that went 25 yards, which I'm not getting on it because there was a drop pass and stuff in the drive as well. But one drive that went 25 yards was enough for people to say that Allard should totally start over Clifford, which
I think you're talking about all the people calling for Christian Veillere to start. Okay, that's a much smaller percentage of the fan base.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, you might have missed that one. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see this weekend. So how we'll get into that later in the week. But we wanted to.
I'll tell you, like in a minute, and we're gonna go. I know we'll talk about the game later, but if they lost that game, no matter in the pick six is the last score of that game.
Yeah.
Penn State Twitter and the message boards would be on fire right now, calling for Sean Clifford's head. So
yeah, it would be a lot harder to defend, that's for sure. And I think it would be even louder. It was loud directly after the pick six, and there was still 8 minutes left in the game. And you can only imagine if they never went down and scored, then what it would have been like. It would have been bad. It probably still would be bad if I'm being honest. But they survived, lived to see another day. I guess they have hopefully an easier matchup this week, which we'll talk about, but can't complain with the first week. I thought overall it was very entertaining just from all the other games I watched too. Yeah. I thought there's a lot of good games this week.
I watched no other games. I was in Alaska, so
that's right. Yeah,
on a boat and took a seaplane. Did a lot of cool stuff, so didn't watch too much football. But this week, ready to get back in it.
Yeah, all right, it's gonna be fun. All right, he's Nate. I'm Alec. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe if you do watch this video. We'll see you next time.